Hello everyone, welcome to this video. I'm Az. I've been wanting to really film this video for a while. The point is that here suddenly is spring finally, after some days of rainy weather, and it was pretty cold still in April. But since it's so warm now, and it's really now, I can really feel the spring season. I've also been a little bit more drawn to maybe stay outside or wanting to do other things, like also keep moving more, like doing a little bit more movement, going to the gym. I really like the idea of also staying more in nature. So I think it's normal. So even though I still wanted to film a video, of course, so I've been a little bit in this kind of mood, and I still sit down here at my desk, because I do readings every day also for my clients and so on. But I've been really focusing on those, so rather than filming videos. By the way, I'm back after a while. It's been like, I don't know if 2 weeks, but maybe 10 days or something. So I want to film today this VR to Nova Mundi. The tag is 15 decks I recommend to my viewers. This is really interesting because it's another opportunity to really showcase decks. I've been really enjoying also other people's videos, and so I really hope you enjoy this. So let's dive in. So the first prompt is inner child work. A deck you recommend for inner child healing, one that feels safe, nurturing and playful, ideal for reconnected with innocence, creativity and emotional truth. So a deck I have chosen for this prompt is actually one that I had shown in my recent 5 deck crushes, and this is the Tarot's Tarot. This is so playful. So thinking about playful, this is the deck that came to my mind. It comes in this pretty pink box and also in this pretty pink pouch. Look at these pretty colors. So this is such a lovely deck. It has been colored on Photoshop, even though these are pencil drawings, And I have chosen this one for this prompt because this one is playful but thoughtful too. I think it feels quite gentle too. So holding space for joy, for memory, for wonder. So there are a lot of fantastic characters because the creator of this, and you can get this on Etsy, the creator of this deck took inspiration, from also fantasy words, pop culture, a mixture, of stories she knew, of maybe popular images, and all the core cards are these fantastic beings. And when you purchase this deck, she also sends you, look at these noodles, I think they are so pretty. She also sends you a PDF, a guidebook just for the core cards, and each of the core cards has been associated with Myers-Briggs personality. So if you've ever taken that test, you know what I'm talking about. And so it's very interesting. So there isn't a guidebook for all the cards, and look at this. I haven't read with this so much because I have currently a rotation and the time for this one is coming soon, but I still have many decks I'm working with, and soon I will also do my April wrap up and I will talk about what I've been working with and also my journals. But this is so cute and I think it will be very nice, to work with. Yeah, to do some child work or maybe explore creativity and emotion in a very soulful and original way. So I think the coloration also of this deck, the colors are so unique, and it's one thing that I really appreciate in this deck and I personally love. So this is the deck for my first prompt. I also like that the box, by the way, is one of those sustainable boxes, so nothing too fancy, but I really like it, We see this often now, or even decks coming with no box. So this is the Tarot's Tarot. The next prompt is a deck that's powerful for helping readers face their shadows. Honest, deep, and unafraid to confront the difficult. This is your recommendation for deep transformation and self-inquiry. I had a few decks actually in mind for this one, and the first one that comes to my mind, for example, is my Barbara Walker Tarot. I have already talked about this one, I think, in one of my videos, but I think that today I want actually to talk about a little oracle I have by La Green Witch. And I know many people have the Craft the Guidance Oracle, and you can buy all this on Game Crafter, but actually I have an oracle by her called the Heavy Iridescent Oracle. So this is called the Heavy Iridescent. It is not iridescent because she actually decided that, you know, printing an deck with iridescent borders was so expensive, and so actually the deck comes, you know, La Green Witch comes with this kind of normal borders. But what is interesting is that this deck is absolutely shadowy, so I don't use this one often. But if you ever decide, you know, to read with this one, and the cardstock also feels like linen, but the more like stiff one, a little bit more plasticky. So this is perfect for shadow work. And it's not a deck, you know, that messes around actually. So it deals with, like here, with, for example, anger, obsession. So it's quite bold, ego. It's bold, witchy, and also deeply rooted, I feel like, in pain and power, and maybe also the parts of us that we try to hide. Here it is like the, this is in French, the acceptance of, I don't remember what échec means. Oh, it's not destruction, it's actually failure. So acceptance of failure, this is so powerful. The abusive authority, this is powerful too. The exploration of self. So it's also quite, I feel like, psychological maybe. Every time I use this deck, it's almost like it looks at you and it asks, it says, let's talk about what you are really feeling deep down, you know. This is the necessary descent. And this is Sigmund Freud, by the way. So when I said this is psychological, there are also some references to planets here. This is tenderness for the self. I really like the colors in this card. Introspection. This is faith. Melancholia. This is Charles Baudelaire. And there are also all these, sometimes, you know, literary references, or maybe references to psychologists, or in this case, the poet Maudit, you know, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. I've studied literature, and I come from literary studies. The cursed poets, you know, or Maudit poets in French, were this group of poets who were outcasts of their society in the 19th century, towards the end actually, and despised by others. Their poetry really focuses on a lot, I think, on the suffering of their experiences. You know, many of them were also addicted, had addictions, or I remember also Verlaine, for example, he was also a little bit violent, you know, so they were actually very peculiar personalities, and having them in a deck is quite significant. Then you have cards like this, like the, you know, this is a break that restores you. I don't know if this gives me like a Jeanne d'Arc vibe. This is love attraction. I really like this. This is also the other draw. So maybe you need to pull other cards or something, I don't know. This is emotional blockage. This is a shadowy deck, you know, this is toxic relationship. It doesn't beat around the bush, and so when you use this one, it has either to be for a peculiar purpose, or you have to be really in the mood. You know, I really enjoy these images, and I really enjoy it being a little bit edgy or slightly dark. And also the other oracle she has, the Craft the Cadence, and I know there is also another new one out now. This is also the little white book that comes with it. It's in French, but it's not a problem. I mean, I can understand French. And so there are short entries for each card. It's quite useful, so it is enough, you know. She also has a tarot deck named the Noisy Museum, and I wanted that one for a while. It's on my wish list. But yeah, this is cute, the Heavy Iridescent Oracle. Now, talking about deity work or spirit guides, a deck that serves as a spiritual bridge, perfect for working with deities, spirit guides, or higher realms. It holds sacred energy and supports devotional practice or channeled messages. Actually, when we talk about channeling messages and so on, I don't really channel for myself that much. I channel from my intuition for myself, you know. From my higher self, actually. So I like to think that I connect to my own intuition, my higher self, when I read, more than a sort of, you know, external entity or something. But when talking about deity work and deities, there is a deck specifically that came to my mind because I used it a lot, especially many years ago. It's an oracle. This is the Ancient Feminine Wisdom of Goddesses and Heroines. So this is out of print, but actually when I got it years ago, I got this one on Amazon, so it was just available, and now it's quite pricey if you look for it. So I just found out that it is pretty expensive because it's now out of print. This was published by US Games, by the way. I also have the tarot deck. It's called the Celestial Tarot by the same creators. And this is the little white book that comes with it. I know that there was a little bit of, there were different opinions about this deck when it came out. And I know that some people didn't like the entries because maybe they are not the most accurate ones when it comes to, like here I wrote no for some reason, when it comes to the actual mythological stories. But you know what I did? I didn't want to give up on this deck. And what I did, and these are the backs, by the way, so pretty. What I did years ago, I wanted to work with it so much because I like it. I really enjoy the artwork here and this style. So you can already see what I did was, leaving the keywords here, the associations on the cards that resonated with me. But then when it came to let's see if I can find them. Yeah, this is pretty raw, so it's not fancy, it's not like a fancy mod or anything. It's just something that worked for me. So I just replaced on some cards the keywords with something that was true for me every time I pulled this specific card. And so this is how the card actually was reading for me based on then the feedback I got from myself and from my own readings. This is so pretty, by the way. So when we talk about deity work, I don't have many deity-based decks. I was also thinking about the Tarot of the Huntress. You can get many deity decks out there. There are many also mass market ones. This is the only one I used, basically. So I don't remember now what the keywords were here. But let's see here, for example, if I can find one of these. For example, here, the Maenads, it said revelry, which is okay. But actually then, based on the entry and also the way this card read for myself, I decided to call it a liberation, and it works far better. And I think it broadens also a little bit, the meanings and the possible meanings when you read. And then, for example, here we have the Goddess of the Moon. And I changed this keyword because it said reflection, which is good, I guess. It's fine, but just I found that it worked better for me when I use the keywords like news cycles or inner world, which has to do with reflection. When you reflect, you go deeper within. But yeah, so sometimes the changes were just, a little bit more subtle. Sometimes they were more radical, really depending on what I needed and what I felt it was right for me, when I read with this cards, but they are so pretty and they are so detailed, and I don't know if you can see. And please don't mind my nails, because nail day is tomorrow and these nails are pretty old. But I wanted to film this video today nevertheless. Yeah, Medusa with transformation is perfectly fine for me. So there are some keywords that worked and some that didn't. Also here, I think for Iphigenia, I think the keyword maybe was grief or something, but I prefer something slightly more empowering in my cards, and so I replaced grief with leave behind what doesn't serve you. That is much more empowering than just having a keyword that reflects your feelings or how you are feeling. So it actually gives you a solution or a prompt or an encouragement, you know. This is all based on Greek mythology, by the way, so if you want something that actually embraces more traditions, you know, you may have, of course, to look for something else. And so I'm sorry this is out of print, but I think that each of these cards is so beautiful that I just wanted to really show this one, and is the one that I genuinely, you know, used for this kind of work. I love Greek mythology too. Also here, Aries, I don't know if it was like competition or something like this, but even here I preferred something more empowering, like confront the issue and release it. This is actually a sentence, you know, I took from the book. And so, yeah, some slightly modifications. This is also a tape that can be easily removed, so it does no damage to the cards. So this is the ancient wisdom of goddesses and heroines, out of print, so sorry for that. And now, ancestor work, a deck you that suggests for connecting with ancestral wisdom, whether from lineage healing or honoring those who came before. This one opens the path to ancestral connection. I might have chosen like the Herb Crafter Tarot, for example. This is one that also connects me to my ancestors. I have talked about that deck, I think, in a couple of my videos already. So I have chosen actually the Margarete Patterson Tarot, because this deck is one I have worked with quite intensely between February and March, pulling one card each day. So actually I was studying the deck, and so as you can see, I pulled all these cards and also wrote, you know, prompts or meanings taken from the book. And actually the book is written, the entries are written in poetry for all these cards, and there are a few left that I haven't studied deeper, but I have done some. This was my study deck, you know, for a couple of months actually. And as you can see, also the oh, actually this comes in German because I bought the German version. I went on and translated using, you know, Google Photo, the photo app, you know. I translated all these pages into my language. My native language, by the way, is Italian. So I have chosen this one for the prompt ancestor work because this deck feels like bone and soil. And also the poetry many times, especially in the court cards, speaks of what I've taken from my father lineage, what I've taken from my mother lineage. So I feel like this is available mass market, by the way, I forgot to say. So if you like poetry a little bit, or if you like to have the descriptions of the card written not in a traditional way but in a more like poetic and creative way, this is the deck for you. You have also, you know, to like a little bit this abstract painting, this abstract style that is very, in any case, layered and rich. For how the book, you know, the descriptions are written, I think this is so good to connect with, you know, your lineage. In particular, when I was reading with this one and studying this one, I found that I found a lot of resonance between my own feelings and then what actually I have taken from my parents, because many of the descriptions here, but this is just my personal experience, you know, refer to your father, your mother, also to brothers and sisters, but I don't have brothers and sisters. So I think there is something, also it's a very meditative deck. So I actually don't use decks or any specific deck to connect with my ancestors. The only one would be the Herb Crafter Tarot, because that one has some cards that remind me of my grannies, in particular one of my grannies, and one of those cards I have on my desk. It says curandera, and my grandmother was a healer, which is the meaning of curandera in Spanish. And so I actually keep this card on my altar. And so maybe that deck for me, would be meaningful in this sense, but I don't have a specific practice that I do around, ancestors or ancestral work. And so I have just chosen a deck that doesn't speak too loudly. It's something you have to sit with, I think, but it's always meaningful. And I think it could be appropriate for that kind of work. This deck definitely roots me in the idea that my story didn't begin with me, and that I can call on those who came before for guidance, healing, or even belonging. So this is the Margareta Peterson Tarot. As you can see, the keywords are in German, because my deck is in German. Most part of the work I did with this one was the translation, but I think it was an opportunity for me to really dive into this even deeper. This is a deck for prompt 4. So now divination, a deck that excels in traditional divination. Clear, direct, and accurate. This is your top pick for those seeking predictive insight and practical answers. So I've already talked about my Dreaming Way Tarot. This is my most accurate deck. This is also one of the oldest one I got. I think it was like the third maybe deck I got, or the fourth. And this is also one, this is mass market too, This is also a good choice for beginners, I guess. But this is the most accurate. It always gives me very clear insight. Is my top pick, or my top choice when I need just a definite answer, when, for example, if the reading is not clear, this one usually provides the ultimate answer. And so it dispels any doubts, and I just trust this deck. So it's a matter of trust. Clearly we have, bonded and built this kind of trust over the years. And if you are a reader, you know what I mean, to build a trust with your deck. So it is being reliable, and so this is the best choice for me when it comes to, getting very clear answers. This is clear, but it's never blunt. I guess it is just very practical. And so normally when I want, that little snap of haha, this is the deck that I go for, I reach for. It's an old friend, It's one that still gets some use when I need like the ultimate answer, when I need that clarity. So this is the Dreaming Way Tarot. So now for the As Above, the deck that connects the reader to cosmic or spiritual realms. Ideal for soul work, life path exploration, or messages from the higher self. It speaks to the divine perspective. I guess this one was featured in my top 11 current favorite decks too. So I still have also to do like a deep dive into this deck. This is the Serpent Fire, by the way, commemorative edition. These are the backs. And in the first edition, this pattern used to be the border. I remember seeing the first edition that came with those borders. Many people didn't like it. I actually wanted the borders, but now I'm happy to have this pattern in the backs. So this is the little white book. I still had to do a deep dive with this one, but I really like these empowering mantras here at the bottom. Again, this is a deck that will be soon in my rotation, I think, by the beginning of summer, because I have many new decks I'm working with currently. So it has like the Astrological Association as well. It has a keyword, it has other keywords, it has a bright meaning, shadow meaning, and this mantra. So I really like this mantra in particular, and I think it would be also nice for journaling. And I think this is a healing deck overall, you know, empowering and healing. And it has this cosmic energy. That's why I've chosen it for the as above prompt. This feels like cosmic medicine. When we need to zoom out and ask big picture soul questions, but also get a little bit of healing. I really like also the abstract cards and all these patterns we have. And there is a little bit of this desert, you know, setting as well. I think it's perfect for the summer. So I guess this is a deck that for also his geometric, you know, design may help you see patterns, timelines, and purpose. It also has some nudity. It's a very feminine deck, by the way. Not too extreme nudity, by the way. It just photographs, so some of the cards also have these photographs of feminine bodies, while others are more abstract. Sometimes we see also some famous people on the cards. It has that, you know, ethereal glow that can connect you to the higher self and maybe galactic threads. It's quite dreamy and it feels like a wise deck. The colors of this one also are so pretty, and as I was saying, it's a pretty feminine deck too. Quite unusual and interesting. Yeah, for the colors I was saying, there are some famous people. It really depends. Some cards have no people, some have photographs. Yeah. And I guess my favorite card, I don't know if you have it, I think it's this Ten of Swords. What a gorgeous Ten of Swords. I think it's my favorite one ever. So this is the Serpent Fire Tarot Commemorative Edition. It's available. Also, I bought this one on a tarot stack. Now for this So Below deck. You recommend for grounded, real-world readings. This one captures everyday emotions, human experience, and earthy wisdom with clarity and depth. And so I've chosen a rather weight Smith-based deck. This is the old style tarot. I don't have the box here because I don't keep this one in the box. This is always out. I actually keep it in a container with my most used decks for every day, especially for those, you know, that I use for clients. And this is one of them. So this is mass market again, another mass market deck. Of course, its a recommendation is RWS based. So easy to understand, and it has that earthy feel also for the palette. So if you seek like a deck, easy to understand for every day, but at the same time quite rich in meaning and symbolism, because I have already talked in another video about the, very briefly, you know, and let me know if you want a deep dive into that, into the colors and the symbolism in these cards. There is a lot to pick up on. Also, you know, there are plants and flowers and animals. So it's, you know, RWS based, but I think with a more like, with a deeper twist. And so there is a lot you can pick up on. It's deeper than it seems, I think, but it's pretty straightforward and simple to use. And so if you want something that really grounds you, this has a very earthy energy for me. So it's very grounding. It's perfect, I think, for obviously any kind of reading. So for love, career, you know, this is one I use a lot for my clients because it's just perfect. It gives very clear responses for pretty anything. The colors are so pretty. So even though this kind of brown or maybe sepia, I don't know, is the predominant color, it is pretty colorful then inside, you know, within this frame of little border. Then the images are pretty colorful, you know. Yeah. All the reds and the blues. I mean, it's so pretty. I love the artwork in this one. This is such an interesting Seven of Cups, I always say it. Yeah, it brings the grit of everyday life, you know, with a RWS language. It captures, you know, everyday life, like the prompt says, and everyday emotions. It is just, you know, a very practical deck. Again, very clear. It always gives me clear insights. It's almost, you know, like the Dreaming Way Tarot. Also that one I shown before, you know, as a pretty earthy energy. I think it would suit this prompt too. And so, yes, this is the old style tarot. Definitely a recommendation, available mass market, easy to find, easy to use and to understand, maybe also to learn with. Oh, it comes with this blank card, which is very interesting. And when I got this one in readings, I really like it. So it has its own meaning. It has a sense, you know, it makes sense. So the next one is the hug deck, a deck that offers emotional support and comfort, gentle, compassionate, and soothing. This is a deck that feels like a warm hug for everyone going through a tough time. I have talked about my hug decks, you know, in my favorite jeans decks. It was another VR. This is the Little Sister Tarot. I think this is still available on Etsy. And this is a deck that says, you know, the creator says, I am an artist, I'm also a little sister, and identify an identity that has come to mean more to me over time. Both older siblings have passed, but I still consider myself a little sister. So this is a work of art, you know, that was born out of, you know, grief. And I think as a means, you know, for the creator to reconnect with her identity after having, you know, lost the siblings. And so this is such a gentle deck, both in the palette, you know, and the art, but also in the meanings and how, you know, the descriptions are made, also in the booklet, in the little white book. So these are the edges, so gorgeous, matte blue edges. This deck is like sitting on the couch with a best friend in pajamas, you know, crying and laughing all at once, telling all your secrets, finding comfort in each other. There is a lot of diversity also in this deck, so I really like that. If it's something you seek in your decks, it's very tender, it's intuitive, it's full of care. Every time I pull from it, I feel held. If you are in need of, you know, softness, comfort, this is it. And just for you to know how this reads, for example, Page of Cups, if you want to use, you know, I guess when I want to use this deck for self-healing, I usually take the shadow meaning, because the shadow meanings in this little white book, I think, are so empowering. So, for example, the reversed here, this comes as a reminder that self-doubts can hold you back. Instead of doubting yourself, free yourself from fear and take a chance. Then, of course, this seems, you know, easier said than done. So you may want to pull more cards. Of course, you're going to have more cards in your reading, and maybe, okay, so asking another question like, okay, what is holding me back, and what is the practical step I can take, you know, to free myself? Because if you read the upright meaning, it's almost, you know, the same, but I mean, it can work. The Page of Cups spontaneously presents the chance to go for a new project or adventure. You are in flow. Do not try to limit your creativity. Instead, let it take you somewhere. By maintaining childlike curiosity, anything becomes possible. So yes, it can work, but I think the shadow meanings, since they are also usually shorter, they are far to the point, more to the point, maybe, especially if you need something to the point, you know. And yeah, it's so healing. So for how also the you use it, you know, with the little white book, I think it's very interesting to see, you know, to listen to what the deck is saying, actually. I enjoy using with a little white book if I want that brief sentence, you know, that just hugs you, that just, you know, holds you and comforts you. Next one is the Feel Good deck, a deck that uplifts, encourages, and energizes. Whether through color, artwork, or message, this one is a perfect Feel Good recommendation for readers who want joy and empowerment. I have chosen the Affirmators Tarot, so I don't know if I have many playful decks actually. One is I've shown before, like the Tarot cards can feel like childlike and playful. This one, actually, it says, if you read here, from magical guidance from the universe to help you help yourself without the self-help helpingness. There is a lot of play with words in this deck. Wiser than friends, cheaper than therapy. I mean, you can get, you know, the mood here, and the inside of the box is yellow just to uplift you even more. Take a moment also to appreciate the bags. They are always gorgeous. This is mass market, by the way, another mass market deck here. And this is the little white book that comes with it. And the style here, it's so unique. So even the gloomiest cards, you know, have this sense of humor. You have like affirmations, you know, for each card. So if you don't want to go through the whole meaning, just get an affirmation for yourself. Today, I say yes to the divine spark that sets me ablaze, and I carpe every dumb DM. So this is the style. You get a sense of the style, you know, of the writing here. So this is so fun. It's like a unique, you know, oh, not unique, but maybe a different take on the cards. And so affirmators, yes, because you get affirmations for each card. It is so colorful and it's so playful, and it has this kind of childlike vibe, you know. So again, available mass market on Amazon, and there is also a whole series of oracles called the affirmators, and there are a lot of them, and they come with these cards with full messages on the cards, and the style is the same. So if you like this type of writing, if you want to play a little bit, you know, if you feel like in the mood for this kind of messages, this can be pretty, you know, uplifting, and it's so colorful. It's a little bit silly too, but sincere, you know, and also it can remind you of not taking yourself too seriously, I guess. It doesn't exactly sugarcoat the message, but it's more like really that sense of, you know, you can pull from them when you need maybe some lightness, jiggles, and maybe a loving push forward. So this is the feel good deck, the Affirmators Tower. Now it's time for my most versatile deck you recommend for handling any type of reading, for love, careers, shadow work, daily pulls, and everything in between. Reliable, flexible, and reader friendly. This is the all-arounder that adapts to every situation. And for me, it's not surprise if you've been following my channel, watching my videos. My favorite deck of all time is the Lioness Oracle Tarot. This to me is the all-rounder, meaning I can use this one for almost everything. And actually, if I have to choose, just keep one deck of in my entire collection, which will be a little bit strange, you know, just to wake up tomorrow with just one deck, but I will probably wake up with this one. Beautiful matte edges. I love also this little white book. It has also astrological associations, so it is everything, you know. So I could recommend this one for each one of the prompts actually that we have seen here. I basically show this all the time. And so every time I want, you know, I have to show my favorite, the one that smells best, the one that I would use more, the one that my current favorites, you know, the soul deck, and I mean, it's just everything. So there is a little entry here, and I love actually the meanings. You have a series of keywords. There is no upright and shadow. This is almost everything you need, I guess. I use this one also. I use this in my mood tracking with tarot practice all throughout April. So basically pulling a card every day and just picking the keyword or the sentence that resonates with you more in that moment to, you know, to track your mood. So it was just a way to use tarot for the practice of mood tracking that maybe we already know, especially if you keep a journal for it. It is a blend of all the things I like art and flowers and this kind of feminine energy. Normally I don't use this one for clients, even though I have used it for clients sometimes, but this is one I use mostly for myself, and sometimes it has a little bit of humor too. It's very cosmic, it's very feminine. I don't want to repeat myself, I show this all the time, but it does it all for me. So especially when I use it to read for myself, I can almost ask anything, and you know, from love, career, self-reflection, you know, again, daily pulls, magic and channeling, whatever, you know. So, and this collage art is wild and emotional, and somehow it always makes sense to me. is a staple in my collection for sure, and one I trust with everything. I don't have the oracles. I know that there are other oracles, you know, the Stars Divine, I think, and the Vision of the Muse. I didn't really get those or wanted to get those because I am already so fond of this one. I don't know, they look a little bit, I know they are completely different, but they look a little bit like replicas for me aesthetically. I prefer, you know, each deck that I have to be pretty unique. Normally I don't reach for, although I don't tend to buy decks that are very similar unless I want to collect all the decks by the same creator, which is something I have thought about. So this is the Lioness Oracle Tarot. So now the most inspiring deck. A deck you recommend to inspire creativity, intuitive flow, or personal transformation. Whether it's the art, the energy, or the depth of the messages, this one sparks something powerful in the reader. This one is also one I have shown recently in my 5 deck crushes. A deck that does all those things for me. The most inspiring at the moment is this one. It doesn't come with a box, I think always for like a sustainable reason. So, you know, or a reason connected to sustainability. This is the Tarot des Paysages Intérieurs. It comes from France. The artist is named Camille. This is the 3rd edition for me from 2024. I got mine, it's 16th out of 108, by the way. This is the 3rd edition, I guess. This deck is so evocative, it's so strange, it's so unique. Strange in a good way, you know. The artist wanted to depict the negative side of each tarot card as we know them. She painted all these images for the cards. All the images form like a landscape, so you could put all the cards like this and form a narrative with the cards. Apart from, yeah, the aces are a little bit different, but these cards, you know, create a narrative, you know, in your reading. And this is so interesting and so unique. And so you could create a story here. You could read it intuitively. But this is also what I call my poetry deck, because actually the cards inspired me to write some verses, inspired, you know, by each card and each landscape. They actually seem, you know, they may look very similar, but the energy of each card is so unique. So the images, as you can see, are very abstract, yet emotionally specific, and they draw stories out of me like no other. Oh, you can get this one on Etsy, by the way. Yes, I mean, maybe, you know, the run is limited, but you can still get it if you like. This kind of abstraction, I get it. It's not for everyone, but as a tarot collector, this is so unique. It's something that if you like to collect decks, this is so unique. It is something I think you cannot miss. So every reading can become a meditation or a poem using this one. And so when I need a creative flow or want also to journal deeply, this is my muse. I am starting now to think about creating, I don't know if a journal, and maybe dedicate just some pages in one of my journals to write some verses that these cards inspire. Not when I read, but just when I look at them. So this can be also very meditative deck, because you can just look at the cards and let, you know, the image speak, and whatever comes to your mind, you may write. Also automatically, or you can write also in a stream of consciousness style. So just letting, you know, your thoughts associate freely. This is what stream of consciousness means. There are far more lines and far more details in these cards than it may show up here, or you can pick up maybe on camera. And so definitely a recommendation to my viewers. From September 12th, we are almost done. A deck you'd confidently recommend to someone just starting their tarot journey. Accessible, clear, easy to learn with. This one makes tarot feel inviting rather than intimidating. There are many decks I've shown in this video that may suit this category, like the old style, the dreaming way, but I have chosen for this prompt my good and oldie, an oldie but a goodie Morgan Greer. So this is also available mass market. This was a deck released in the 80s originally. And again, RWS based, very easy to use and understand. It's so perfect for beginners. It comes with this kind of leaflet, which is very essential. So if you're a beginner, of course, you may need also another book, you know, a good book also to learn from. Let me know if you'd like a video about books, by the way, book recommendations, you know. This deck is gorgeous and it's a classic without being boring. A classic and RWS based, but without being boring. The close-up imagery, as you can see, is also very unique. There are many decks now with the same idea, but I think this one is still a classic. It has very bold colors and easy to read symbolism, and I think it's what makes the Morgan Greer a staple, but also my forever beginner recommendation. This also comes in pocket size. I think it's a pocket size in a tin. I used to have the smaller one, the smaller version, you know, in a tin. And then I rehomed it and I got this one and it works better for me. It's readable, right? So it's very accessible, very clear. It's readable right out the box, I think, but still deep enough to grow with you. And this is also my summer deck. So normally it's the deck that I carry with me during the summer when I go on holiday. I think it's for all the blue color here. It is a very summer deck for me for some reason. Also for the orange, can feel very autumn, but this is one that for me, it travels with me, you know, in the summer. Last year, for example, I was doing readings, so pulling some cards from this when I was traveling with my boyfriend. So he was driving and I was on the passenger seat and just pulling some cards. And actually the card that I pulled when asking about our vacation was the Tower. So it's very interesting because we were going, you know, to the south of Italy. You know, the beaches there had like, each one had the name, was named after the name of a tower. These are like, you know, like historical towers. And the first day we went to the beach and to see one of them, actually started raining. So this stormy image actually reproduced quite well. It's almost like a photograph of what happened the first day, especially the weather. So yes, a good recommendation for beginners. This is, yeah, the one I would recommend, you know, having, even if you're a beginner, I think, I mean, as a beginner, it's important to pick something that resonates with you. So this is a recommendation, but note aside, you know, I think you just have to pick whatever calls you. It may not even be traditional, it may not even be RWS based, but the prompt says accessible and clear, so this is what comes to mind. Then of course, the choice is always intuitive and it's always personal. So this is the Morgan Greer Tarot. Now, the best deck for professionals. So, a deck you suggest for experienced readers who need depth and nuance or strong symbolism. Ideal for layered reading, spiritual insight, and working with clients at the professional levels. Actually, again, it also depends here, you know, not much on experience. I think it's more like a personal choice and what reads well for you, especially when you read and if you read for others. But I keep in this small pouch my Thought Nebula, and this is actually the deck by Novamundi. This is the Thought Tarot, but it is being recolored, you know, so colors have been changed, and this is also a smaller deck. And this is one I would recommend to experienced readers, first of all because it's Thoth, and so you may need to know the system a little bit, and also because this is a non-traditional version of it, and so for the colors, for, you know, the images are still clear and you can still get, you know, all the shapes and the symbolism, but obviously the colors have been changed, and so this makes it a little bit more challenging, I think, to read. And so this is definitely not a deck I would recommend for beginners. This is one I got from Make Playing Cards, so it's also one that you don't find easily. And I don't know if this is still available, maybe Nova knows better. Of course, this is her deck. So I don't know if you actually have to ask her, you know, if you want to get this one. The thought system also is something maybe you may need to get to know first before approaching this one, and then approaching also this version that has actually been modified. Interestingly enough, this is the version that actually got me closer to the thought system, because I wasn't really familiar with it and I wasn't really drawn to it. And having a deck like this, it has been slightly changed. Actually, you know, I feel like pulled towards this deck. I normally don't feel towards any other traditional thought deck. So this is the Thought Nebula by Nova. So next one is the Witchy Vibes. A deck you'd recommend for those who love witchy aesthetics, moody vibes, magical symbolism, or spell work support, casting, altar work, and so on. Actually, I don't have many witchy decks, so it's not really my vibe. So I don't think I really have an altar deck properly, or something that supports spell work. I don't do spell work. Difficult for me to pick a deck with magical symbolism, because for me all the decks have some symbolism and symbolism that is magical, so more or less. But I have a deck for moody vibes, and I also got one with moody vibes that can be suitable, also can be read as witchy in a certain sense, and it's one I got recently. It's the Lacrimosa Tarot. So it's quite popular now. This is by Rosebait Tarot. It's definitely a deck that is moody, gothic too. It comes with a little guidebook. If talking about witchy, you were expecting pumpkins or pointy hats or seals, I have nothing like that, honestly. I'm not into those things, and brooms, you know, and the classical witchy aesthetics. So I'm not, you know, I'm not into those things. But I have a deck with a dark aesthetic, and this one may be for you if you like it too, and if you like also art and curated art decks. The Lacrimosa has certainly a mood, and it is, you know, if you like also dark academia or a little bit dark aesthetic, this is also for you. So Lacrimosa drips with mood. It's a little bit like foggy, spellbound, mystical, and art-based, but actually art-based with these very interesting close-ups. This is what is very unique in this deck. And also the art chosen, you know, it has definitely a mood. Sometimes you just see parts of bodies, of images, and not the full figure. And this is also interesting too. It adds to the vibe. Imagine doing like candlelit readings, maybe. Also, you may do ancestor rituals with this one, I think. Or if you want a more gothic, witchcore aesthetic, this one I think enhances the atmosphere like no other. So now of course it's spring and it's sunny outside and it's warm. It might not be the mood, but imagine, you know, I can imagine using this in October. I mean, this is definitely, this sets the mood. I really love the close-ups. Art-based decks are my thing. I'm really a fan. So this is the witchiest deck that comes to my mind based on my collection. Of course, this is not mass market. Of course, you have to contact Rosebay, or I think this is always available now on Make Playing Cards, so you can get it pretty easily. I know that if you want mass market deck or more like basic recommendation, maybe an oracle too or something, there is a lot you can find on Amazon. And there are many decks that also come to my mind, but honestly I don't have, so you just, you know, just pick whatever you prefer. So I'm just recommending what I have and what I personally like. And isn't this the best Seven of Pentacles you've ever seen? So moody. Love red and black. Okay, for the last prompt, astrology work, I'd like to recommend for astrology lovers and cosmic seekers, one that waves planetary wisdom and archetypes into its structure. Ideal for exploring birth charts, transits, and celestial guidance. Okay, so there are many decks that comes to my mind that are mass market and that I actually again don't have, that can help you understand astrology. Before being a tarot reader, I was actually an astrologer for many years, so I've been reading tarot for 7 years now. But before that, I was an astrologer and I read astrology charts, both birth charts and also relationship charts, for many years. I spent several years studying astrology, so it is easy to understand that I don't really feel the need to have an astrology deck because many of them are very basic, so I don't see the need in my own practice to pull a card that says like first house, seventh house and so on. Even though I see the way, knowing astrology already, I could incorporate those kind of cards in especially client readings, maybe readings for myself too, but I haven't actually built this kind of practice over the years, so I don't have astrology decks that are specifically, astrology decks. Many tarot decks out there, they come with their, with the astrological associations on the cards, and so what I'm going to show is actually a deck I've got quite recently that has those kind of associations, just to show, what I have. So it is not an oracle. So normally what you would seek here is an oracle, I think, because there are pretty good oracles out there that are, based on transits and also maybe even aspects you can find in your birth chart that can help you study that kind of things. Since I have studied them already, in books, and I have also practiced for some years, I really don't need, to have that material specifically now for me in my tarot practice. As I was saying, a deck I got pretty recently is the Maria Tarot by Masha Kulenovic. This is the box. This is the gorgeous guidebook that comes with it. I don't know if call it, little white book, because it's actually on the chunky side of little white books. This is a thought deck. Again, what is interesting is that for each card you get all the minor arcana correspondences, and each one has the astrological association, symbolism, the association also with the Hebrew letters, numbers, and then astrology, of course. So you have a little bit of a description of planets, and since this is actually not only the straightforward association, but you get also a little bit of explanation, I guess this is the closest I can get to this prompt. Like astrology, for example, the Four of Swords is associated with Jupiter in Libra. Jupiter or Jupiter? Yeah. Jupiter in Libra brings a sense of balance, equity, emancipation, justice, and peace. So this is just something, and then it goes into the planet and the sign. Like Jupiter symbolizes optimism, generosity, expansion, growth, luck, faith, and abundance. And then Libra is a cardinal sign. You may have to research what a cardinal sign is, ruled by Venus, and you may, if you're not into astrology, of course you don't know what it means to be ruled when a sign is ruled by a planet, but it's basically a planet that conventionally governs that sign. Saturn is exalted in Libra and shares Libra's inclination to balance and harmonize opposite. Exalted, again, is another technical word we use in astrology when a planet is exalted in that specific sign, meaning that sign, that position in that sign brings forth the best qualities of that planet. But again, this is, you get just a glimpse of what actually is, or what it means to study astrology, or what astrology studies are. And so you may need, actually, this is not, a deck I would recommend if you're a beginner, either in tarot or in astrology, because this can be quite difficult to understand, I think, for many reasons. If you're a beginner in tarot, if you're not into the thought system, and if you don't know astrology. But this is actually the deck that I want to show you. It, provides some explanation of the, this was my last readings. Maybe I want to keep those. This is also a limited edition, and this comes also with a Tree of Life card. These cards are linen, and they are just a joy to touch. And also you have the Tree of Life in this leaflet. And here you have also the decan wheel. And if you don't know what a decan is, Just for you to know that each sign basically can be divided into 3 decans. So a sign basically would be 30 degrees. Each decan would be almost 10 degrees. So you have 1 decan, 3 decans for each sign. Each one of the decans is also associated to a specific planet within that sign. And we have in tarot cards associated to each decan too. So this is the decan wheel. So this is a thought-based deck. I think the beauty of the minors is unmatched. Another deck that comes to my mind that has this beautiful thought-inspired or thought-based minors is the Asherah Tarot. This is definitely, again, not a deck for beginners, but maybe a deck for astro nerds, maybe tarot nerds, I don't know. Also because it's a limited edition, so maybe you may want to purchase this also for, collection, just for collection purposes. So the Maria Tarot integrates this kind of, celestial energy, and you also have the astrological associations on the cards and the symbolic depth of the thought, so beautifully. It feels aligned, with both the astrological wisdom, but also with archetypal exploration. Just be mindful, by the way, if you get tarot decks with astrological associations, so most of them hopefully are correct. There are some decks out there, by the way, so just be mindful when you buy new tarot decks, especially if you're a beginner, you may not know this, that some decks, do their own thing. So sometimes the astrological associations may not be traditional, but this is something normally that the deck, states somewhere, whether in a description or in a guidebook, and there may be a purpose why some associations have been changed. Like, for example, earlier I mentioned the Celestial Tarot, that is the tarot deck. This is the Oracle by the same creators. The tarot deck, that is the counterpart, of this Oracle, actually comes with astrological associations, but they are quite original, so, and if you are a little bit more expert and, for example, you do the decan walk, you may want to use a deck that has the traditional associations, so you can do this type of practice, which is basically working, based on the decans, working with the energy of that specific card during the period of the month or the year that each card is associated with. And so just be mindful of that, but of course, normally you don't have this kind of problems. Like, normally you find, you should find the traditional associations in the cards. This one also has Hebrew letters on the cards. So a pretty unique deck, a very beautiful one, and certainly one that I want to use also to deepen my thought studies. This is the Maria Tarot. So yes, guys, I'm now surrounded by all these beautiful decks that I will have to put in order again. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to remind for those interested that I also offer personal readings on my website every day, scttarot.com. So if you enjoy my channel and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and also comment and like, so let me know what you think about all these decks. And if you have recommendations too, so I'd like to hear yours. Thank you so much, and I really hope to see you soon in another video. Bye bye.